The 80s were a wild time. So many things that happened back then and were seen as normal feel crazy to us and like it all happened in another universe. On the other hand, a lot of it is coming back into style and the current pop culture and media landscape reflects this. There's so many remakes or reboots of movies and TV shows from the 80s or simply even modern TV shows that take place in the 80s such as Stranger Things. Would Stranger Things ever gotten this big if it took place in the modern day? No, because it's not just the story and great acting that makes the show so good. It's also the visuals, music, aesthetic, and nostalgia that adds a lot to it. And all of that is perfectly reflected in Vice City. It feels like a time capsule in its own way. Of course, it's crazy to say that you can experience the 80s through a video game without having ever lived in that period. But what you can do is experience its essence. Vice City is a hyper parody of a decade, but ironically, by being such a parody, it actually ends up representing the period it parodies really well, at least visually. Everything is over the top, the people are on cocaine, and wherever you go or look, it's all bright pastels and neon colors. This is the world Scarface and Miami Vice we're talking about. I think it's sad that Rockstar Games doesn't want to go back to this era or make another GTA game set in a completely different decade. It seems like they have decided to keep setting GTA games in the modern day, which brings a lot of benefits and cool features of course, but it also starts to feel a bit boring in terms of time period. Not that the stories or worlds are boring, but just the fact that it's essentially always the same modern day and also the same type of critique. GTA 4 is essentially the same parody of modern day America as GTA 5. The differences are rather subtle, even though the fourth game tells a darker and more grounded story. But none of them are as wild as Vice City or even San Andreas. With modern graphics and modern capabilities, they could create an amazing game set in the 80s again, or the 70s, 50s, 40s. As things stand right now, there's really not a lot of good games set in those periods apart from the Mafia series or LA Noire, and those also can't really be compared because they focus on completely different things. Either way, Vice City is one of the greatest games ever made, and its aesthetic and atmosphere is the reason why the franchise exploded so hard and why there is such a strong wave of nostalgia currently to be seen. Vice City is famous for a lot of things. It has a fantastic story, legendary music, lots of attention to details, and pop culture references. However, the most important aspect of Vice City and what really sells this game and makes it so unique is its aesthetic. In fact, this amazing atmosphere is the main reason why this game managed to make such a strong impression on gamers, pop culture, and the gaming industry. When it came out, no other game looked this way, certainly not this detailed, and no other game represented the 80s in such a unique way. The whole game has a neon atmosphere, from the way the sky shines with purple color at night or when the sun starts going down, to the streets being illuminated with hundreds of neon signs, lights, and logos. The cars are colorful and a lot more stylish compared to GTA 3's. The same can be said about the NPCs walking the streets. Depending on the neighborhood you're in, you will see different types of people and vehicles. If you're in the Ocean Beach area, the cars and pedestrians will be more luxurious and rich. You'll see more Ferrari or Bugatti inspired cars as opposed to the poorer and cheaper ones in the downtown or industrial area. Neon lights and colors are everywhere. The cars are either yellow, red, purple, or green. The buildings shine like rainbows, and the pedestrians couldn't be more different from each other. Vice City is a very colorful game. Being this colorful, it manages to capture the spirit of the 80s and Miami perfectly. Even the weapon icons are heavily stylized and a mix between purple, yellow, green, and orange colors. Same goes for your health, time, and money status. Walking down Ocean Beach or any street will give you the feeling of experiencing a beautiful work of art. This game brings an entire decade to life and interestingly did to modern pop culture what Miami Vice did to the 80s. Ocean Beach in particular is probably the most iconic area in this game and in the real Miami. No matter where you look here, all buildings feel perfect for screenshotting. Another aspect of Vice City that I absolutely love is the purple glow the sky has at night and certain certain times during the day. It's incredibly atmospheric. You can imagine people just sitting here looking at the sky and draw paintings of it. It has a very movie-like feeling and fits perfectly. This adds so much atmosphere and gives the game a certain relaxing vibe. Even though this place is riddled with crime and murder, it looks like a paradise, a place you could imagine taking a vacation to. Which is exactly how Miami was back then and is still now, and what Scarface and Miami Vice were all about. Vice City embodies them in its looks. No matter where you turn, everywhere is some kind of reference to these movies and TV shows. The reason there even is such a thing as Stranger Things should in large parts be attributed to Vice City because it brought the 80s and all that glam of the decade back into the mainstream. Driving down the neon-lit streets at night while listening to In the Air Tonight or Self-Control or Billie Jean is an experience that no other game will give you. It makes you feel like Tony Montana or Sonny Crockett. If you thought that the movie Drive popularized the night drive experience or aesthetic, then you're wrong. It was Vice City. Drive itself took almost all of its atmosphere and aesthetic from this game to the point of it feeling like a movie about a GTA character. No GTA movies exist, but Drive is probably the closest thing, at least to a Vice City inspired modern movie. Even the poster of Drive has similarities with this game. The entire game plays like it was recorded on a VHS tape. You can't shake the feeling like you're seeing a heavily stylized 80s movie or experiencing nostalgia in its purest form. It is clear that Vice City took heavy inspiration in the way it looks from Scarface and especially Miami Vice. A lot of people seem to think that Scarface had the biggest influence on this game, but I'd say it's a lot closer to Miami Vice. The way certain NPCs look, like the Haitian and Cuban gang members, they look exactly like two characters from the Miami Vice pilot. Two detectives that try to arrest you when you get a 3-star wanted level, coming up in a Ferrari and wearing white suits. Miami Vice was insanely successful back in the 80s and is probably the most important modern TV show ever made, as it changed the way TV shows were made in general. The impact that show had on pop culture and even fashion can still be felt to this day. Vice City, interestingly enough, despite being heavily inspired by Miami Vice, did the same thing for modern audiences. It revolutionized gaming. It helped turn GTA into a massive franchise, which at this point is the most successful and influential gaming series ever made. Vice City completely changed the perception of video games. Sure, you had other games that were influential within their own genres, but it's Vice City that really pushed things in a mainstream direction. No other gaming franchise received this much attention. Think about this. Do you know any other game that had as many controversies and as much media coverage as GTA? Even politicians and questionable lawyers tried fighting this franchise. And it all comes back to how this game is structured and how it looks. What I love about Vice City and GTA games in general is that no area looks the same. They are all distinct from each other, and the same can be said about the vibes of each game, especially the older 3D ones. For example, if you play the GTA trilogy, you will notice how GTA 3 has a very dark, grey and depressing atmosphere. It's constantly foggy or rainy, most cars look bland and boring. Vice City, on the other hand, is full of neon purple, green and other shiny and bright colors. NPCs are wearing pastel suits and clothes, and it's a lot more sunny. Even when it rains or gets cloudy, it still feels more upbeat and fun. The atmosphere is just very party-like. And such observations can be made about all other GTA games. San Andreas, for example, has 3 distinct areas, and if you're in Los Santos, you will see a much stronger orange hue to reflect the feeling of Los Angeles. Rockstar Games are masters when it comes to making the worlds distinct and unforgettable. Even if you don't like a certain GTA title, you will never have a problem in telling them apart because they are so distinct. This even counts for games such as Red Dead Redemption, where I can easily tell the difference in atmosphere and vibe of these two. This game is full of pop culture references and Easter eggs. The GTA franchise is known for this, and it might not seem like anything special in this case, but back when Vice City got released, this was not done by a lot of games, and the GTA games weren't known for it either. Sure, GTA 3 laid the foundation for what would come later and already had plenty of Easter eggs and movie references, but it was Vice City that revolutionized this and caused the franchise to explode. Playing Vice City, you will quickly notice that the entire game is heavily inspired by movies and shows such as Scarface, Carlito's Way, or Miami Vice. These are the most prominent ones, but of course there's hundreds of references to other movies such as Beverly Hills Cop or Rambo. It would take hours to break down all the inspirations that can be found in Vice City, but really, Scarface and Miami Vice are the most prominent ones. Their prominence and influence on Vice City is so strong that not only are there almost one-to-one copies of locations from those movies that you can find in-game, it's also in the name and entire atmosphere and vibe of the game. Vice City is not called like that randomly, it's clearly a nod to Miami Vice, a TV show that had massive influence on the 80s and is one of, if not the most important crime drama ever made. This influence has clearly inspired Vice City to a point where the game probably would not have existed without Miami Vice. The entire vibe and atmosphere of this game is in large parts based on Miami Vice. The suits Tommy can wear, the way pedestrians look, such as that one NPC that is a direct visual copy of her character from the TV show. The dynamic between Tommy and Lance is very similar to the one between Crockett and Tubbs, and it's interesting to note that the voice actor of Lance is Philip Michael Thomas, the same guy who played Ricardo Tubbs on Miami Vice. This is not a coincidence. Rockstar Games did this on purpose because this game is almost like a spiritual successor to that TV show. The entire setting of Vice City is heavily inspired by Miami Vice to the point where if you get a 3-star wanted level, you'll see a white Ferrari pull up with two detectives clearly dressed like Crockett and Tubbs. But of course, it would be crazy not to mention the heavy impact Scarface had. Aside from the story having a lot of similarities and Tommy Vercetti having a similar rise to power as Tony Montana, there are locations and interiors taken straight from the movie. For example, you can find an apartment close to Ocean Beach that looks very similar to the one in the famous chainsaw scene from Scarface. In fact, inside of this apartment is a bathroom with a bathtub full of blood and a chainsaw that you can pick up and use. Another one is the mansion of Ricardo Diaz, which is clearly modeled after the one Tony Montana owned. In fact, the main office and security room looks almost exactly like the one from Scarface. These things might be standard practice today, 20 years later, but the only reason that's the case is because of Vice City and how masterfully Rockstar Games integrated these Easter eggs and references. They give the game a charm that even today few games manage to capture despite trying. In fact, the GTA franchise would have never taken off or turned into what it is now had Vice City not been full of these things and tried to tell a mostly grounded crime story, but in a video game format. This game is the reason why people slowly started taking gaming and video games as a medium more seriously, because at that point it was still considered to be childish and something children or teenagers do, but certainly not a thing to be taken seriously or capable of telling a movie-like story. Which is funny because on one hand, GTA was being heavily criticized for being too violent and not something children or teenagers should play, but then the same people would also ridicule it for being childish. Most people didn't even consider video games to be art, an opinion that has significantly died down ever since, although these people still exist for some reason. When Vice City invited famous AAA actors such as Burt Reynolds, Dennis Hopper, or Ray Liotta to voice the characters of the game, it came as a surprise and was unexpected. These were massive stars, and now you were hearing them in this thing that was supposedly only for children or teenagers. Well, it raised the curiosity level very high, and people started wondering what kind of story this game must have if it has such high-profile actors lended their voices. One thing led to another, and now 2 decades later, we still consider Vice City to be one of the most important and legendary games ever made. GTA games might be some of the most insane and crazy games ever made. You have total freedom to basically do whatever you want, even if that includes running over pedestrians with your car or unleashing a storm of bullets into a crowd of people. You can rob banks, hijack planes, steal cars, beat people up, burn entire neighborhoods down, and cause absolute chaos. And that's just a small part of the game. GTA games are always packed full with activities that you can pursue outside of actual story missions. That is one of the things that makes them so special, because the side activities never feel forced on you. They never feel like a chore or a grind, unlike in most Ubisoft or Bethesda games, for example. The freedom you are given here is unique and special. Few other games will offer you that many opportunities to just let loose and do whatever you want. In fact, I'd say there are no other games that allow this on such a level. Not even the Red Dead Redemption series, although it's close. The beauty about this is that the game never forces you to do anything you don't want. You don't have to cause chaos and destroy the city. In fact, you can even roleplay as a model citizen and never even run a red light. The choice is yours on how you decide to spend your time playing GTA. Other games will force you to collect thousands of useless flowers or other collectibles for some virtual achievement that you often can't even use in-game. You're basically getting a participation trophy that will be stored in your library with zero actual use. But in Grand Theft Auto, things are different. Almost every side activity will actually have some sort of impact or influence on your character. If you shoot enough people as Michael, your weapon skills will improve, making you even deadlier. If you drive over enough pedestrians as Franklin, your driving skills will improve, making you an even better menace to society. If you play as Trevor, you will go insane. It's easy to see why so many people are trying to ban the GTA games. You are essentially playing a terror simulator. Most other games and developers are too afraid to offer this amount of freedom in their games. And that's what makes Rockstar Games stand out so much, among other things. They're not afraid to push their games to extremes and do whatever they want. It's one of the reasons why they are considered legendary and why they had so many issues with politicians and lawyers. Apart from being known as chaos simulators, the GTA games succeed in having an incredible amount of details. The attention to details that the developers poured into these games is astronomical and often overlooked or unnoticed by a lot of gamers. For example, when you exit your car, you can hear your engine cooling off. When you take a swim and leave the water, your clothes will be wet for a while and your character will take his time getting dry. If you wear a shirt, you can see sweat stains after a while. These are just a handful of examples. There are thousands of little and big things that Rockstar Games focused on by trying to make these worlds lived in and believable. They are masters in this, and there are very few other games within the same genre that had this much love and attention poured into them. The only other game I can think of is Mafia 2, which also offers an insane amount of details. It's no wonder why GTA games take so long to be developed and released, even before they discovered how much they can milk GTA Online. Rockstar Games had a few flops recently with disappointing remasters and their absolute disregard for Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Online. It's honestly a shame how badly Red Dead Redemption 2 was treated. It is a legendary game and the work put into it can be felt and seen each time you play. Games like that are extremely rare and rightfully stand out due to them being groundbreaking and pushing the industry forward while also inspiring and influencing other titles and companies. Sure, it's not without flaws or issues, but no masterpiece is perfect. Despite these flaws, there are no other developers that strive for this level of details in their games. When you play a GTA game, you never feel like you're exploring a fake world. Sure, the parody aspect is always there, especially when you stop and read the billboards or listen to the radio. But even then, despite often being over the top and clear parodies of America, they never feel fake or artificial. There are games where the world is just dead flat and barely interacts with you, just feeling like a movie set that has nothing going on if you peek behind the curtain. Mafia 3 is a prime example. No matter what you do here, there will be few reactions to your actions and you basically can't do anything outside of story or side missions. You can't even buy clothes or guns on the store despite the game taking place in one of the biggest and most touristy cities in America. And it's just weird when you consider that Mafia 2, a game that was almost a decade old by the time Mafia 3 got released, offered more interactivity and opportunities. In GTA games you rarely have these problems, especially if you play the newer ones. With each release, Rockstar tries to give you as many choices as possible without it feeling like they are shoving it in your face. Just listening to the radio in GTA games is a unique experience because they offer amazing songs and hilarious talk shows or podcasts. Many consider Vice City to this day to have the best soundtrack out of any video game ever made, and rightfully so. Music and radio have always been important components within the Grand Theft Auto franchise. That's because listening to any radio station in any GTA game feels like you are actually listening to a real radio station. That might sound obvious and logical, but this franchise was the first that did something like that. Other games followed and some managed to come close, but none of them ever achieved the dedication Rockstar put into their stations. These stations often feature real musicians and celebrities as their hosts, often playing themselves while announcing the next song. This gives the whole thing an authenticity other games lack. It's also amazing that you can essentially spend days just driving around in GTA games listening to the radio. I'm sure everyone experienced the moment when you drive to your destination and just as you are about to get out, an amazing song starts playing and you just stay in the car or drive around Los Santos or Vice City until the song ends. Except it's worse in Vice City because after an amazing song ends there, the next one starts playing, making it really hard for you to leave your car. It's clear that Rockstar Games put a lot of work into making the worlds feel alive and believable. They even went ahead and gave players the opportunity to watch TV in GTA 4 and 5. You can literally just go into your apartment, turn on the TV and watch a bunch of fake ads and TV shows that are not only hilarious but also perfect parodies of real life shows. I mean, how many other games do you know that give you the opportunity to watch TV or listen to the radio stations for hours inside of their games? It's these things that add to immersion. This is why you never feel disconnected with the world. Everything feels natural, or as natural as can be in a video game. Most players probably don't even realize this because they simply don't pay enough attention to these things. This is what makes the GTA franchise and Rockstar Games so legendary. They are not afraid to push boundaries and go to lengths other developers refuse to go.